Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition and the new canon history of Drizzt Do'Urden and the Drow. So, previously there was this concept that the Drow were one people and they were distinct and unique. That was incorrect. We now know. So, if you read 3,000 plus pages of R.A. Salvatore's material that he wrote in a bunch of novels, you really don't know the history of the elves. There was a recent article on the Dungeons & Dragons website that clarifies and really kind of explains how R.A. Salvatore really didn't understand the history of the Drows, and that there were like a lot of parts of the Drow that history that R.A. Salvatore didn't really grasp, right? But we know it now, right? So basically, here's the new canon history of the Drow, and very specifically Drizzt Do'Urden. So today we're going to talk about the Lorendrow. So the Lorendrow are specifically they were in the Underdark, and they remained untainted by the corruption of Loth. We now know that Loth corrupted the Drow. Okay, well, the Drow are the Drow that remained in Menzoberranzan, and the Drows, who were a very small minority of the Drow who appreciated and followed Loth. Okay, but the majority of Drows were not down with Loth. They really didn't like Loth at all. Right now, the Aven Drow, they were able to reject Loth specifically because they have innate integrity, right? We don't know how the Lorendrow were able to remain untainted by the corruption of Loth, okay? But they were. And when they realized Loth was not to their liking, what they did was they went south, okay? And they settled in a place called Saekolath. And Saekolath is the place of the shade, okay? Now, the place of the shade is very verdant, and these elves really liked verdant places where plants grew, and they lived in harmony with nature, okay? So, and then we also know that the Lorendrow, 1/3 of the Drow people, not only did they reject Loth, not only did they remain untainted by the corruption of Loth, but they became known as the Green Shadow Elves, specifically. The Aven Drow were known as the Starlight Elves, but the Lorendrow are specifically known as the Green Shadow Elves. And so one of the things that's really interesting is, the Lorendrow are a really new type of elf. They like plants, and they live in harmony with nature. Also, they live in verdant green areas. That's pretty unique and new, right? Like, we really haven't seen that for elves before, where, elves are kind of like in harmony with nature and live with a lot of plants and are really, very in tune with a natural environment. So the 5th edition team was able to kind of, break through, do some really, very critical work to define that some elves like to be in harmony with nature and live in verdant green places. There you go. All right. So that is the Lorendrow. They are 1/3 of the new canon for the Drow. Now, what's really important to understand, because Wizards of the Coast specified this, right, is one of the reasons we're now learning about the Aven Drow and the Lorendrow is the Aven Drow and the Lorendrow give us new current context on specifically Drizzt Do'Urden. Before, we thought Drizzt Do'Urden is an uncommon Drow, right? He had the courage to break away from Loth. We now know that that is not the case at all. Most Drow break away from Loth, right? Only a very small, very tiny amount of Drow actually care for Loth at all, right? Only at maximum 1/3. But because of the Avon Drow, and because of the Lorendrow, if you were to be a player character and you played a type of Drow who rejected Loth, that's not uncommon at all. That's common. That's a normal Drow. So only a very unusual Drow would actually follow Loth. So Wizards of the Coast has really clarified this. It's a very new understanding of the Drow and how they work, and now we know, right? And we also know that some elves like to live in verdant places that are green and are in harmony with nature. It's kind of breakthrough, design work that the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition team is now bringing to us. It's pretty new, right? That's a different view on elves, just that like they're aligned with green, verdant places where there's lots of plants, and they are, and they're very much in tune with nature. Pretty different. So that is the Lorendrow, one of the new specific sub-heritages of the Drow. It's very interesting. I think it is very interesting. That is my opinion. I'd love to hear everything I just said is all my opinion, except for the parts where I was just explaining what WotC is clarifying for us through their specific article that really kind of just pushes away all that bothersome R.A. Salvatore 3,000 pages of material. You can forget all that. It's all clarified now in one 3-page web article. There you go. That's canon. Right? So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.